evening. Welcome to the National Constitution Center. How's everybody tonight? You know, we're being filmed in multiple venues, both live and live to tape. Heritage is carrying us live tonight on your blog. Did you know that, Senator DeMint?
Yes, I did.
Heritage is carrying us live right now online. C-SPAN recording us for a future broadcast. So I expect all of you to get insane and let people know just exactly how we do things in Philadelphia tonight. There's an open, well, not open bar, cash bar. Unless some of our salespeople are here and want to run a tab. It's up to you. You guys, you ready for this tonight? Isn't it great to see Senator DeMint here in Philadelphia?
Thank you, Chris.
I want to thank our sponsors tonight, the West Shore Group, online at westshorefunds.com, the Constitution Center, who they have been the most fantastic hosts and have really put a premium. Our friend Jeff has really put a premium on bringing in speakers of all stripes. And one of the things he said to me when he became the head of the Constitution Center, Senator DeMint, was, you know, I really want conservatives to know they're welcome and they have a home, too, at the Constitution Center in Philadelphia. And he's worked very hard to make that happen. And I also want to thank our friend Colin Hanna. Colin is here from Let Freedom Ring, and Colin is a great sponsor of our show and introduced me, actually, to Heritage and Senator DeMint personally last year. But most of all, thank you very much for being here and listening to Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. You know, the very first pocket Constitution I ever picked up was from Heritage, as a matter of fact. And inside it says, founded in 1973, the Heritage Foundation is a research and educational institution, a think tank, whose mission it is to formulate and promote conservative policies based on the principles of free enterprise, limited government, individual freedom, traditional American values, and a strong national defense. In other words, the Heritage Foundation is doing in Washington, D.C., what I believe just a block away our founders intended all of Washington, D.C. to do.
That's why we're there.
Yeah.
You've got a... you've got a great voice, so you should consider being in radio someday. My mics must not be as loud as yours.
Yeah, boost the man's mics. He's got TV hair, so together...
Is that right?
Yeah, you look
but Heritage has been around 40 years, and they were instrumental in getting me interested in running for public office in the first place. At 47 years old, I'd never run for anything. I got frustrated with Washington. I was tired of beating on the television set. I was reading Heritage Backgrounders because a friend of mine who was a professor had done a fellowship at Heritage. And I started seeing the connection between public policy and the things that I cared about. And I found out I was a conservative. I thought I was just an American, but reading that helped me understand what the political stripes I really believed in. And once I was in the House of Representatives, they were my surrogate staff. And by the time I got to the Senate, they had started Heritage Action and could actually make the phones ring when I was trying to stop bad legislation. And it's the only organization I would have left the Senate for.
That was going to be one of my first questions. You were somebody that, for conservatives, I know I count myself as one, you were a warrior in Congress. And frankly, when I heard you're leaving the United States Senate in late 2012, early 2013, I thought, oh, how can we lose him? How can he go? I mean, you know, for a lot of us nationwide, you were a real voice. Why did you, was it purely that Heritage was that big of a draw to you, or did you just feel, I hear a lot of people say politically, I'm spent, I'm done with the system.
No, I wasn't burned out. In fact, I was encouraged that in 2010, I went outside the party structure and worked in a number of states around the country, such as Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I might, by the way, may I, if I don't mean to interrupt you, you might recall a certain 2010 election where a certain Jim DeMint endorsed a guy, what's his name, over another guy. I think you endorsed the guy named Pat Toomey over then Senator Specter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you went out on a limb then.
Well, I did, and I was lectured that Pat Toomey couldn't win in Pennsylvania and that we needed to support moderates. And what I found all over the country, if the voters want a moderate, they're generally going to vote for a Democrat. What we need is inspiring conservatives and folks who understand that our ideas make life better for people. But I went out on a limb, not just for Pat, but in Florida for Rubio and Rand Paul, and I just had been in the Senate long enough to realize we couldn't change the Senate until we changed some of the people who were there. But once that happened after 2010, I saw that all the pressures of Washington started cutting the legs out from under a lot of these good guys. And I had seen during 2010, if you went outside of Washington and engaged people directly with a good message and good people, you could do what everyone said was impossible. And that encouraged me, but I realized we could not win the debate in politics from the inside. I could make a little bit of a difference helping to elect some folks, stopping some bad legislation, but we got to be in a position to pass good legislation to turn our country around. And so heritage for me had always been the centerpiece of the conservative movement. They had the intellectual integrity of the research and the right ideas. They had started Heritage Action to build a grassroots network and keep Washington more accountable. There's so much pretense in Washington, and Heritage Action has a scorecard and helps people see what's really going on. So people hate them, which is good to be hated in Washington in a lot of cases. But
by the way, to your credit, I noted this tonight. Politico has identified you as of early March as the most hated man in Washington, D.C. So congratulations.
Well, I hope you don't feel that way yourself here tonight. But if they like
I already
you,
bought the book. Who cares?
If they like you in Washington, you're probably part of the problem because everyone there is real cozy with the status quo. I shouldn't say everyone, but the system is definitely holding on to the status quo. So when you try to change it, as I did with earmarks, for instance, I found out half the lobbyists in Washington were there to get earmarks, and they were not very happy when we banned them.
Earmarks, that is, you know, one of the central tenets in your book, you devote a whole chapter to federalism, the very concept that was born here in Philadelphia, federalism, power to the individual, the communities, the states. Yet, that concept of earmarks really perverted that in a huge way, did it not? Maybe more than anything else?
It made what we were supposed to look out for the nation in Washington. This made it everything parochial in a sense that people came to Washington to get money for their states. And back in the states, it was seen as free money because it was coming from the federal government. You didn't really have to pay for it. And it just exacerbated the mentality of we can just keep spending and spending. And both parties used it to help their folks stay elected because you go home and say, I brought you these $5 million for a bridge or this $1 million for your museum. And that was what most of Congress was about.
And this is how they say people hate Congress but love their congressmen.
Sure.
Because their congressmen and their senators come home and they do a ribbon cutting and they open a beautiful museum or a bridge and they slap their name on a placard on the outside of it and they're lauded and they're loved.
But we got away from the concept of what's good for America, and very little of the debate was about how do we make the country better and stronger in the future. It really changed the mindset of those who were representing people back home that the idea was to actually take federal money and bring it home. And that's not the concept of the Constitution. I've heard people use the idea that, well, the Congress has the power of the purse strings. They do, but within the enumerated powers. There are only certain things that we should be doing in Washington. And you mentioned federalism. Not too many people even know what the word means anymore. It sounds like more federal government, but it's that original constitutional idea that the federal government would be limited. The Constitution was a compact between the states to limit the federal government and otherwise leave the states free to operate, compete with each other. And it was never envisioned that the federal government would be centrally controlling most aspects of our economy and our society.
Which, of course, brings us to today's news. Here we are a day after the deadline for Obamacare, where today they celebrated and waved the flag. 7 million people magically fell out of the sky and went to the website. I mean, it's all phony, Jim, you know that.
No, it's an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, but you know, this is the thing that for those of us here in this particular part of the country, talking about Tom Corbett and Chris Christie, these are two governors that one has wavered a bit, but has still held somewhat firm on the expansion of Medicaid. This goes back to that concept. It isn't that conservatives are cruel and heartless and don't want to help the poor, but we all know when you open that door,